Captain Jake Morrison stared out at the endless stars through the bridge window of the UES Defiant. 3 years had passed since humanity built their first real spaceship capable of traveling between star systems. 3 long years of trying to make contact with the alien civilizations that filled the galaxy. 3 years of being completely ignored. The ship hummed quietly around him as it drifted near the edge of Federation space. Jake had grown tired of the constant rejection, but he never showed it to his crew. They looked up to him, and he could not let them see his frustration. Every attempt at peaceful contact had failed. Every diplomatic message had gone unanswered. The aliens treated humans like they did not exist. Commander Lisa Burke approached him with a datapad in her hands. She was his second in command and had been with him since the beginning of this mission. Her face showed the same weariness that Jake felt inside. "Another rejection from the Vexthari Empire," she said quietly. "They sent back our diplomatic package without even opening it. The message just said that primitive species should focus on their own development before bothering advanced civilizations." Jake took the pad and read the cold response. The Vexithari were crystalline beings who controlled a large portion of the galaxy's northern sectors. Their technology was impressive, but they looked down on anyone who was not like them, just like all the other alien races humanity had encountered. "What about the Thornwood Collective?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "They sent a reply, but it was just as dismissive. They said that warlike species have no place in their peaceful alliance. They called us violent before they even met us. The Thornwood Collective was made up of plant-like aliens who had spread across hundreds of worlds. They claimed to be peaceful, but they would not even give humanity a chance to prove they wanted peace too. It seemed that having weapons on their ship automatically made humans the bad guys in their eyes." Dr. Aaron Phillips walked onto the bridge carrying his usual collection of alien technology samples. He was the ship's chief scientist and spent most of his time trying to understand how the different alien races built their incredible machines. His work had given humanity insights into faster-than-light travel and energy shields, but it also revealed something troubling. "I have been studying the weapon systems from that derelict Tide Runner ship we found last month," Aaron said as he set his samples on a nearby table. "The technology is amazing, but there is something strange about it. Their weapons are incredibly weak compared to what we expected." Jake turned to face the scientist. "What do you mean?" "Well, their energy output is impressive, but the actual destructive capability is minimal. It seems designed more for stunning or disabling rather than destroying. Same thing with the Luminar energy weapon fragments we recovered. Everything suggests these races have not fought a real war in a very long time." Lisa frowned at this information. "How long are we talking about?" "From what I can tell from the technology degradation and design philosophy, I would guess at least 800 to 1,000 years. Maybe longer. These civilizations have been at peace for so long that they have forgotten how to fight." This revelation made Jake think about humanity's situation differently. Earth had only achieved interstellar travel recently, but humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every weapon system on the Defiant had been designed with real combat in mind. Their military tactics and strategies came from centuries of conflict and survival. Navigation Officer Kate Sullivan called out from her station. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Federation Council. It appears to be some kind of general announcement." Jake nodded to her. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life, showing a massive chamber filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. The Vexthari crystals glowed softly in their designated area, while the Thornwood plant beings swayed gently in theirs. Aquatic tide runners floated in specialized water tanks, and the energy beings known as the Luminar appeared as dancing lights above their section. A tall Vexithari crystal being stepped forward to address the assembly. Its voice came through the universal translator as cold and formal. The Galactic Federation Council acknowledges recent communications from the species calling itself humanity. After careful consideration by our xenobiology and cultural assessment committees, we have determined that this species is not yet ready for galactic citizenship. Their aggressive tendencies and primitive social structures make them unsuitable for membership in our peaceful alliance. All future communications from this species will be automatically filtered and not reviewed by council members. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge of the Defiant in stunned silence. Jake felt a mix of anger and disappointment wash over him. After 3 years of trying, the aliens had not just rejected humanity, but had decided to ignore them completely. "So that's it then," Lisa said quietly. "We're officially persona non grata in the galaxy." Aaron looked up from his samples with a puzzled expression. "I don't understand their logic. Yes, humans have a history of conflict, but so does every species that survives to reach the stars. How did they all become so peaceful?" Kate turned from her navigation console. "Maybe that's exactly the problem. They've been peaceful for so long that they see our military preparedness as a threat instead of a necessity." Jake walked back to the command chair and sat down heavily. The weight of failure pressed down on him. He had promised the people of Earth that he would establish diplomatic relations with the galactic community. Instead, he had managed to get humanity officially blacklisted. "Captain," Lisa said after a moment, "what are our orders now?" Jake considered their options. They could return to Earth and report their failure. They could try to find some other way to make contact with individual alien races, or they could continue their mission of exploration and hope that something would change. "We continue to monitor galactic communications and gather intelligence," he decided. "Just because they don't want to talk to us doesn't mean we should stop learning about them. Someday they might need our help, and when that day comes, we'll be ready." Aaron nodded approvingly. "There's still so much to learn about their technologies and cultures. Even if they won't share willingly, we can learn from what they leave behind." Lisa checked her duty roster. "I'll have the crew maintain regular patrol patterns along the border regions. Maybe we'll find more derelict ships or salvage that can help us understand these civilizations better." As the UES Defiant changed course toward the Outer Rim territories, Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Humanity might be alone in the galaxy for now, but they would not give up. Somewhere out there among all those alien civilizations was the key to proving that humans deserved a place in the galactic community. He just hoped they would get the chance to prove it before it was too late. 2 weeks after the Federation's official rejection, Navigation Officer Kate Sullivan noticed something strange on her long-range sensors. The UES Defiant was patrolling the outer edge of known space when her instruments began picking up massive energy readings from the void beyond the galaxy. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this," Kate called out from her station. Her voice carried a note of concern that made everyone on the bridge turn to look at her. Jake walked over to her console and studied the readings. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their database. They were powerful, organized, and moving in formation through the empty space between galaxies. "How many contacts are we looking at?" Jake asked. Kate adjusted her sensors and ran the scan again. "At least 50 large objects, possibly more. They're still too far out to get accurate readings, but whatever they are, they're big, and they're heading straight for our galaxy." Commander Lisa Burke joined them at the navigation station. She had spent years studying alien technology, and these readings made no sense to her. "These energy patterns don't match anything we've seen from the Federation races. The power output is enormous." Dr. Aaron Phillips hurried onto the bridge with his portable scanner in hand. He had been monitoring deep space communications when Kate's discovery interrupted his work. "I picked up some kind of transmission from that direction about an hour ago," Aaron said as he connected his scanner to the main computer. "It wasn't directed at us, but I managed to record part of it. The language is completely unknown." The bridge fell silent as Aaron played the recorded transmission. Strange sounds filled the air, unlike any alien language they had encountered before. The tones were harsh and mechanical, lacking the musical quality of Vexathari crystal speech or the gentle rustling of Thornwood communication. "Run it through every translation protocol we have," Jake ordered. "I want to know what they're saying." While Aaron worked on the translation, Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Kate, set course for the source of those energy readings. We need to get closer and see what we're dealing with." Lisa looked at him with surprise. "Captain, shouldn't we report this to Earth Command first? If these are unknown aliens, they might want to handle first contact differently." "We'll send a report," Jake replied. "But we can't wait for orders from Earth. By the time a message reaches them and they send back instructions, whatever this is will be much closer to inhabited space." The Defiant changed course and began moving toward the edge of the galaxy. As they traveled, Aaron continued working on translating the mysterious transmission. After several hours, he finally had results. "I managed to decode part of the message," Aaron announced to the bridge crew. "It's not good news. The transmission appears to be some kind of tactical communication. Words like harvest, consume, and feeding ground keep appearing." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Feeding ground? Are we talking about a hostile alien species?" "It gets worse," Aaron continued. "I found references to something they call the long sleep and awakening time. This suggests they've been dormant for a long period and are now becoming active again." Kate checked her navigation display. "We're still 6 hours from visual range, but I'm detecting more contacts. The formation is spreading out like they're preparing for some kind of operation." Lisa pulled up the galactic map on the main screen. "Captain, if these unknowns continue on their current course, they'll encounter the Outer Rim colonies first. Those are mostly Thornwood agricultural worlds with minimal defenses." Jake studied the map and realized the gravity of the situation. The peaceful Federation races had no idea what was coming their way. Their technology was advanced, but they had no experience with actual warfare. If these mysterious aliens were hostile, the Federation would be completely unprepared. "Open a channel to Federation Council chambers," Jake ordered. "Emergency priority." Kate worked at her console for several minutes before shaking her head. "They're not accepting our transmission, Captain. The automatic filter they mentioned is blocking all communications from us." "Try contacting individual member species directly," Jake said. "The Vexathari, the Thornwood Collective, anyone who will listen." For the next 2 hours, the crew of the Defiant tried every communication method they could think of. Every attempt was either blocked or ignored. The Federation races were so determined to avoid contact with humanity that they wouldn't even accept an emergency warning. Aaron looked up from his translation work with growing alarm. "Captain, I've decoded more of their transmissions. These aliens call themselves the Devourers. From what I can understand, they're some kind of ancient species that travels between galaxies, consuming all life they encounter. They've been sleeping in the void for what sounds like 1,000 years. 1,000 years, Lisa repeated quietly. That's about the same time frame you estimated for the Federation's last real war. The implications hit everyone at the same time. The galaxy had been at peace for a millennium because the greatest threat it had ever faced had been dormant. Now the Devourers were awakening, and the current Federation races had no memory of how their ancestors had survived the last encounter. Kate's sensors suddenly blazed with new contacts. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy spikes ahead. Whatever they are, they're accelerating and changing formation." On the main screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Dark shapes emerged from the void, sleek and predatory, unlike anything in the Federation database. The ships were enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest Federation vessel, and they moved with deadly purpose. Jake counted at least 100 ships in the leading formation, with more emerging every minute. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them difficult to track visually. "Are they scanning us?" Lisa asked. Kate checked her instruments. "Negative, They don't seem interested in us at all. It's like we're too small to notice. Aaron's scanner suddenly erupted with activity. Captain, I'm picking up energy discharges from the fleet. They appear to be targeting something in the outer rim. Before anyone could respond, space lit up with brilliant flashes of energy. 3 star systems on the edge of Federation space simply vanished from the galactic map. Billions of lives ended in an instant as the Devourers announced their return. With devastating efficiency, the bridge of the Defiant fell into shocked silence. Everyone understood that they had just witnessed the opening move in a war that could destroy everything they knew. Set course for the nearest Federation outpost, Jake ordered grimly. Maximum speed. Captain, they won't listen to us, Kate reminded him. The communication blocks are still in place. Jake's jaw tightened with determination. Then we'll make them listen. The galaxy is about to learn that sometimes the species you ignore are the ones you need the most. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council was unlike anything in their 1,000-year history of peace. Representatives from every major species crowded into the Great Chamber as news of the destroyed star systems spread throughout the galaxy. The crystalline Vexathari flickered with nervous energy, while the plant-like Thornwood beings rustled their leaves anxiously. Even the normally calm luminar energy entities pulsed with agitated light. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck above the main floor. For the first time in 3 years, humanity had been granted permission to enter Federation space. The invitation had come as a desperate emergency measure when the Council realized they needed every possible source of information about the new threat. Commander Lisa Burke watched the chaos below with fascination. I've never seen them like this. They're completely panicked. Ambassador Claire Watson had arrived from Earth just hours before the session began. She was humanity's most experienced diplomat and had been chosen specifically for this moment. Her job was to represent Earth's interests while the alien civilizations tried to understand what they were facing. The Federation has lived in peace for so long that they've forgotten how to handle a crisis, Claire observed quietly. Look at them. They're arguing about proper procedures while entire worlds are being destroyed. On the main floor, a tall, Vexathari crystal being was addressing the assembly. Its voice carried the authority of age and wisdom, but also the tremor of fear. The outer rim monitoring stations have confirmed the destruction of the Kepler, Antares, and Procyon systems, the crystal being announced. All life in those regions has been eliminated. The attacking force appears to be moving toward more populated areas. A Thornwood representative swayed forward on its root system. How is this possible? Our defensive networks should have detected any approaching threat weeks ago. These attacks came without warning. Lieutenant Commander Sam Garcia had been studying the Federation's military capabilities since they arrived. What he found was disturbing. Their ships were marvels of science and exploration, but they had virtually no real weapons. Their idea of conflict resolution involved lengthy discussions and peaceful negotiations. Captain, Sam whispered to Jake, their entire defense fleet consists of about 200 ships spread across thousands of star systems. Most of them are equipped with mining lasers and scientific instruments rather than actual weapons. Jake nodded grimly. The situation was even worse than he had feared. The Federation races had built an advanced civilization based on the assumption that peace would continue forever. They were completely unprepared for an enemy that wanted to destroy rather than negotiate. A tide runner floated forward in its water tank, its tentacles moving in patterns that indicated extreme distress. We have attempted to establish communication with these invaders. All of our diplomatic protocols have been ignored. They do not respond to any of our peaceful overtures. Dr. Aaron Phillips had been given permission to address the Council about his analysis of the enemy transmissions. He stood up from the human delegation area and waited for recognition from the assembly. The species calling themselves Devourers do not appear interested in diplomacy, Aaron said when given permission to speak. Their communications indicate they view this galaxy as a feeding ground. They consume entire worlds and move on to the next target. The chamber erupted in frightened voices as the reality of the situation became clear. These aliens were not interested in territory or resources in any way the Federation understood. They wanted to destroy everything and everyone, a luminar energy, being pulsed with urgent light patterns. How many ships are in their fleet? What are their tactical capabilities? Aaron consulted his data pad. Based on our observations, we estimate at least 300 large vessels in the first wave. They possess energy weapons far more powerful than anything in Federation databases. Their ships appear designed specifically for warfare. The Vexathari, council leader, flickered with desperate hope. Perhaps we can evacuate the threatened populations to safer regions of the galaxy. Our transport capacity is substantial. Claire Watson stood up to respond. With respect, evacuation will only delay the inevitable. These devourers appear to be systematically consuming the galaxy from the outer rim inward. Eventually, there will be nowhere left to run. A thornwood elder rustled its leaves in confusion. Then what do you suggest? Our species has lived in harmony for centuries. We have no experience with this kind of threat. Jake realized this was the moment he had been waiting for. He stood up and addressed the council directly. The human species has experience with warfare and military tactics. We volunteer to assist in organizing a defense of the galaxy. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his offer sank in. The species they had rejected and ignored was now offering to help them survive. The Vexathari leader's crystal form dimmed with uncertainty. Your species was deemed too aggressive for membership in our alliance. How do we know you won't use this crisis to advance your own interests? Lisa Burke felt anger rise in her chest, but kept her voice calm. Because unlike the Devourers, we don't want to destroy everything. We want to be part of the galactic community, not rule over its ashes. A Tide Runner representative rippled with what appeared to be hope. What kind of assistance could humanity provide? Your ships are primitive compared to our technology. Sam Garcia answered this question. Our technology may be less advanced, but it's designed for combat. More importantly, we understand military strategy and tactics. We know how to fight a war. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some council members argued that accepting human help would compromise their peaceful principles. Others pointed out that their principles would not matter if they were all dead. Finally, the Vexathari Council leader called for a formal vote. All in favor of granting humanity emergency membership status and accepting their military assistance? The vote was closer than Jake had hoped, but it passed. For the first time in galactic history, a species was being admitted to the Federation not because they were peaceful, but because they were willing to fight. Claire Watson stood to address the Council one final time. Humanity accepts this responsibility, with the understanding that we will work within Federation law and respect the sovereignty of all member species. Our only goal is to protect innocent life from this threat. As the session ended, Jake looked out at the alien representatives filing out of the chamber. Many of them still viewed humans with suspicion and fear, but fear of the Devourers was greater than their fear of humanity. So what happens now? Lisa asked. Jake watched as Federation military officials approached their delegation. Now we find out if 1,000 years of peace has left them with any fight at all. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the Federation's primary military facility, watching the holographic display show the advancing Devourer fleet. In the 3 days since the council meeting, he had been promoted from captain of a single ship to commander of the galaxy's entire defense force. The irony was not lost on him that the species once deemed too primitive was now their only hope. The Federation had gathered every available ship from across their territory. 200 vessels of various designs floated in formation near the military station. They were impressive to look at with their sleek hulls and advanced technology, but Jake knew they were poorly equipped for the fight ahead. Commander Lisa Burke approached with the latest intelligence reports. The Devourers have consumed 12 more star systems in the past 48 hours. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the core worlds in less than 2 weeks. The core worlds were home to over 50 billion beings across dozens of species. If the Devourer fleet reached them, the loss of life would be beyond imagination. Jake studied the tactical display and tried to find some way to slow the enemy advance. Chief Engineer Ryan Hayes had been working around the clock to retrofit the Federation ships with actual weapons. The UES Defiant was docked at the station, undergoing its own modifications. Ryan and his team were pushing every system beyond its designed limits. "Admiral, the weapon installations are complete on 40% of the fleet," Ryan reported as he joined the command staff. "The problem is these ships weren't built for combat. Their power systems can't handle sustained weapons fire, and their hulls are too fragile for real fighting." Dr. Aaron Phillips had established a research lab on the station where he was analyzing captured Devourer technology from the destroyed Outer Rim systems. What he had learned was deeply troubling. "The Devourer ships are not just weapons platforms," Aaron explained to the assembled officers. "They're mobile factories designed to process organic matter into fuel for their fleet. Every world they consume makes them stronger." Lieutenant Commander Sam Garcia had been studying the enemy's tactical patterns from their previous attacks. "They don't fight like any military force I've seen. They move in perfect coordination without any apparent communication delays. It's like they share a single mind." Jake absorbed this information while watching the tactical display. The Devourers were methodically working their way through inhabited systems, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Their ships moved with mechanical precision that spoke of countless years of practice. Navigation Officer Kate Sullivan called out from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Meridian system. The Devourer fleet is attacking the Thornwood colonies there." Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "All ships prepare for immediate departure. We're going to engage the enemy at Meridian." Lisa looked at him with concern. "Admiral, our ships aren't ready for combat. Half the weapon systems are still being installed. If we wait until we're ready, there won't be anyone left to save," Jake replied firmly. "We go with what we have." The Federation fleet jumped to hyperspace in the largest military operation in their history. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiant as they emerged near the Meridian system, expecting to find a battle in progress. Instead, they found something much worse. The Thornwood colonies were gone. Where once there had been thriving agricultural worlds, now there was only empty space littered with debris. The Devourer fleet was in the process of dismantling the system's star itself, feeding its energy into their massive ships. "My God," Lisa whispered as she watched the display. "They're not just consuming the planets, they're taking everything." The Devourer fleet noticed the Federation ships immediately. 50 massive black vessels turned toward them with predatory grace. Their dark hulls made them difficult to target, but Jake could see weapon ports opening along their surfaces. "All ships, defensive formation," Jake ordered over the communication system. "Remember, these aliens have never fought anyone who fights back. Use that to our advantage." The first exchange of fire was devastating for the Federation fleet. Devourer. Energy weapons tore through their modified hulls like they were made of paper. 3 ships were destroyed in the opening salvo, and several others were badly damaged. But Jake had anticipated heavy losses. "All ships scatter and engage evasive maneuvers. Don't try to fight them directly. Hit and run tactics only." The Federation. Captains had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of combat. Their crews were scientists and explorers, not warriors. Many of them froze when faced with the brutal efficiency of the Devourer attack. Ryan Hayes was working frantically in the Defiant's engine room as enemy fire shook the ship. "Admiral, the power systems are overloading. I can give you full weapons for maybe 10 more minutes before we have to shut down." Kate plotted evasive courses through the debris field, while Aaron coordinated targeting data from his sensor station. The crew worked together with the precision born of years serving together, but they were vastly outnumbered. "We can't win this." "Fight," Sam reported grimly as he watched another Federation ship explode. "We need to retreat while we still can." Jake knew Sam was right, but retreating meant abandoning any hope of stopping the Devourers before they reached the core worlds. There had to be another option. "Kate, plot a course for the Kepler Rift," Jake ordered suddenly. "Signal all remaining ships to fall back to that position." The Kepler Rift was a narrow passage through an asteroid field that served as the main hyperspace route to the galaxy's populated center. It was the perfect place for a defensive stand if you had the right ship and the willingness to sacrifice everything. As the battered Federation fleet retreated toward the rift, Jake made the hardest decision of his military career. He opened a channel to all Federation worlds and began recording a message that would be his last official act as their commanding officer. "This is Admiral Morrison to all Federation worlds. The enemy fleet is advancing toward the core systems. We are falling back to establish a defensive position at the Kepler Rift. If we fail to hold that position, begin immediate evacuation of all civilian populations to the Outer Rim territories." He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. They had followed him faithfully through 3 years of rejection, and now they were facing almost certain death to protect species that had never wanted their help. One ship will remain at the Rift to buy time for the evacuation. The UES Defiant volunteers for this mission. The UES Defiant floated alone at the mouth of the Kepler Rift as 50 Devourer warships emerged from hyperspace. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet spread into attack formation and knew that this moment would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. His crew had volunteered to stay with him despite knowing they would not survive the battle ahead. Commander Lisa Burke stood at his side studying the tactical display. The Devourer ships were massive and heavily armed, while the Defiant was a single exploration vessel that had been hastily converted for combat. The odds were impossible, but that had never stopped humans before. "All stations report ready for combat," Lisa announced calmly. "Weapons are charged, and shields are at maximum power." Chief Engineer Ryan Hayes had pushed their modified systems beyond every safety limit. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of the overcharged weapons and reinforced shields. He knew the Defiant would not survive this battle, but he was determined to make it count. "Admiral, I've rerouted power from life support to the weapons array," Ryan reported over the communication system. "We have maybe 30 minutes of air, but our firepower is increased by 40%. Navigation Officer Kate Sullivan had plotted a defensive pattern that used the asteroid field to maximum advantage. The Defiant could hide behind the larger rocks and use them as cover while engaging the enemy ships. It was a desperate tactic, but it might buy them precious time. Dr. Aaron Phillips had rigged their sensor array to broadcast everything they observed back to Federation space. Even if they died, the galaxy would learn how to fight these ancient enemies. His scientific mind found comfort in the knowledge that their sacrifice would provide valuable data. The first Devourer ship moved into the rift and immediately came under fire from the Defiant's weapons. Jake had positioned his ship behind a massive asteroid that provided cover from 3 directions. The enemy return fire shattered rock and sent debris spinning through space. "Direct hit on their forward weapon array," Sam Garcia reported from the tactical station. "They're pulling back to reassess their approach." Jake smiled grimly as he watched the Devourer ship retreat. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had hurt them in combat. The psychological effect on an enemy that considered itself invincible could be significant. But the Devourers adapted quickly to this new situation. 3 more ships entered the rift from different angles, while the damaged vessel provided covering fire. Jake realized they were trying to overwhelm his single ship through superior numbers. "Kate, emergency maneuvers. Get us behind that cluster of asteroids at coordinates 7 Mark 4, Jake ordered as enemy fire lit up space around them. The Defiant twisted through the asteroid field like a fighter rather than a capital ship. Kate's piloting skills kept them alive as they dodged between rocks while returning fire at their pursuers. Every shot had to count because they did not have unlimited ammunition. Ryan's voice came over the communication system with growing urgency. "Admiral, the power systems are redlining. I can't maintain this output much longer without risking a core breach." "How long can you give us?" Jake asked. "Maybe 10 minutes at full power, then we'll have to reduce to minimal systems." Jake looked at the tactical display and made a calculation that would have horrified any sane military commander. 10 minutes was not enough time to destroy 50 enemy ships, but it might be enough to hurt them badly and delay their advance. "All power to weapons," he ordered. "Forget the shields, forget life support, forget everything except hitting them, as hard as we can." The Defiant emerged from behind its asteroid cover, like an ancient warrior charging into battle. Jake had abandoned all defensive tactics in favor of a pure offensive assault. His ship's weapons blazed continuously as they flew straight at the nearest Devourer vessel. The enemy ship was not prepared for such a desperate attack. The Defiant's concentrated fire punched through its dark hull and triggered secondary explosions throughout its structure. The massive vessel began to drift helplessly as its systems failed. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Enemy fire from the other Devourer ships hammered the Defiant's unprotected hull. Sections of the ship were torn away and systems failed throughout the vessel. The bridge filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burning circuits. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Lisa reported as she worked to reroute power around damaged systems. "We're losing atmosphere fast." Jake ignored the growing list of damage reports and focused on the battle. 2 more Devourer ships had entered the rift and were moving to flank his position. He had to keep them focused on the Defiant and prevent them from breaking through to the galaxy beyond. For 18 hours, the battle raged through the asteroid field. The Defiant used every trick Jake could think of to stay alive and keep fighting. They hid behind rocks, used debris as weapons, and made impossible shots that would have been considered miraculous under normal circumstances. Kate plotted micro-jumps that kept them 1 step ahead of the enemy fleet, while Aaron turned their scientific equipment into improvised weapons. The mining lasers became precision-cutting tools, and the sensor array became a targeting system for their depleted missile reserves. One by one, the Devourer ships fell to the Defiant's desperate assault. Jake's crew fought with the fury of people who knew they were protecting everything they loved. Every alien ship they destroyed was one less threat to the innocent civilians trying to evacuate the core worlds. When the Federation reinforcement fleet finally arrived, they found the Defiant still firing despite having lost most of its hull plating. The ship was held together by emergency force fields and the determination of its crew. Around them floated the wreckage of 47 Devourer warships. Jake opened a communication channel to the galaxy as Federation ships moved to support his position. His voice was hoarse from breathing smoke, but his message was clear. "This is Admiral Morrison to all Federation worlds. The Kepler Rift is secure. The enemy advance has been stopped. Repeat, the threat has been contained." He paused to look around. His ruined bridge at the crew who had stayed with him through the impossible battle. "This is humanity. We don't abandon our friends." The galaxy had finally learned that the species they ignored possessed something that their advanced civilizations had forgotten. Humans would fight not just for their own survival, but for the right of others to exist. In the end, that made all the difference.